If I were moving to Summit County right now and I didn't want to be directly in Breckenridge for whatever reason, there's 3 small towns I would be seriously looking at, and they're all very different. One has the best classic mountain town feel, one has probably the most convenience and most variety, and one might be the most underrated if you want lake views, walkability, and that easy lock and leave condo lifestyle close to the marina and amphitheater. So today, we're talking about Frisco, Silverthorne, and Dillon. So let's get into it. Here's the first thing I wish every buyer understood before they started comparing properties online. Frisco, Silverthorne, and Dillon may all look close on a map, but they do not feel the same when you're actually here. And I mean that in the best way, because this is where Summit County gets really interesting. Frisco is the classic mountain town. It has Main Street, the marina, restaurants, coffee shops, the bike path. It's got historic charm and that small town energy that people usually imagine when they picture owning a place here in the Colorado mountains. It feels charming, but it also feels useful. And that's an important distinction because some mountain towns are adorable for a weekend, but not as easy to live in or use consistently. Frisco's one of those places where you can actually settle into a rhythm. You can walk to coffee, you can meet friends for dinner, you can bike to the marina, you can get to multiple ski resorts without feeling locked into one mountain, and that is huge. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about Frisco. It doesn't feel like a resort base. It feels like a real town. Silverthorne is different. Silverthorne is more spread out. It's more practical, and in a lot of places, it's more modern. You've got the outlets, grocery stores, Target nearby, you've got gear shops, restaurants, and the Blue River, and the rec center, easy I-70 access, and a much wider range of neighborhoods and property types. Silverthorne is the town I think buyers sometimes underestimate at first. They may start out thinking they want Frisco or Breckenridge. Then they look at what they can actually buy, and suddenly Silverthorne gets their attention. Because if you want newer construction, garage space, big views, more square footage, or a property that just feels easier for real life, Silverthorne can start to make a lot of sense. And this is one of those things that's hard to understand from Zillow. Online, you're comparing price, bedrooms, bathrooms, and photos. But when you're actually here, you start realizing that the town itself is part of the purchase, and that is so important. And then Dillon. Dillon is the lake lifestyle town. Dillon has the marina, the amphitheater, the farmer's market, the rec path. It's got lake views, restaurants, and this compact feel where if you're in the right location, you can just park your car and enjoy being there. Dillon doesn't have Frisco's classic Main Street. It just doesn't. It doesn't have quite the same range of property types and neighborhood variety that Silverthorne offers, but it has the lake. And you guys, that lake matters. That's why I moved here from Hawaii. There is something about walking out onto a deck and seeing Lake Dillon and the mountains that changes how a property feels. It just does. So before we get into the numbers or rentals or HOAs, I want you to think about these 3 towns this way. Frisco is charm and central location. Silverthorne is convenience and variety. Dillon is lake, it's lifestyle, it's walkability, lock and leave condo appeal. That's the big picture. Now, let's talk about the topic almost every second home buyer asks me about first. Now, this is where buyers need to just slow down because this one detail can completely change the property search. If you're buying a second home or vacation home here in Summit County, there's a very good chance you've thought, hey, maybe we'll rent it out when we're not using it. And that makes sense, total sense. These properties, they're expensive. The carrying costs are real. And if you can offset some of that cost with rental income, that can be a big part of the decision. But short-term rental rules up here are not simple. They're not the same from town to town. They can change. And even if the town allows short-term rentals, The HOA might not. That's the part that catches people. They'll look at a property online and say, this would be an amazing Airbnb. And I'm thinking, maybe. But first, we need to know if the town allows it, if there's a license available, if the HOA allows it, what the occupancy limits are, what the parking rules are, and the list goes on, because you cannot assume, especially in Summit County. Frisco is very desirable for short-term rentals, but it's also more restricted. Frisco has a short-term rental license cap, and buyers will have to go on a wait list. And as a quick side note, if you want to know how long that wait list is, just give me a call. I'm always checking with the town to find out the latest. Now, this does not make Frisco a bad place to buy. Actually, the demand for Frisco is strong because the town has so much year-round appeal. Renters love being close to multiple ski areas. They love Main Street. They love the marina. They love that it works in the summer and in the winter. But if your purchase only works financially because you need short-term rental income immediately, Frisco may be more complicated for you. And this is where I'll be very direct with buyers. If you need rental income from day one, we need to verify the licensing path before you emotionally attach to any property. Because falling in love with a property first and checking the rules later is not the order that I'd recommend. This is one of those places where I really slow buyers down because the rental rules can completely change the search before we even start talking about finishes, views, or furniture packages. Silverthorne can be more flexible depending on the location and the property, but it's still something you can't guess on. Silverthorne has a lot of variety. There's condos, townhomes, newer developments, single-family homes, luxury neighborhoods, and more local-feeling neighborhoods in areas that may fall under different jurisdictions depending on exactly where the property sits. That last part really matters. Some properties people casually call Silverthorne are actually in the town of Silverthorne. Some are in unincorporated Summit County. Some are in HOAs with their own rental rules. Some have deed restrictions. So when a buyer says, can I rent in Silverthorne? My answer is usually, let's look exactly at where this property is, because Silverthorne is just not one simple answer. That said, if a buyer wants a better chance of finding something with rental potential, more inventory, and more variety in property types, Silverthorne is absolutely worth considering. Dillon can also be very interesting for short-term rentals, especially if the property has lake views, walkability, and easy access to the marina or amphitheater. Think about it from a renter's perspective. They're coming to the mountains. They want the view. They want to walk to dinner. They want to go to concerts in the summer. They want to ski Keystone or 8 Basin in the winter. They want something that feels like a vacation. Dillon can deliver that, absolutely, especially in the right property. But Dillon is also very HOA heavy in certain areas. A lot of the most appealing properties near the lake and the town core are condos or townhomes. That can be great for easier lock and leave ownership, but the HOA rules have become a part of that conversation. The town may allow short-term rentals, but certain HOAs may limit them, so it's super important to check. Or the HOA may allow rentals, but have minimum night requirements. Pet rules, parking rules, quiet hours, occupancy limits, or other policies that affect how the property performs. So here's how I'd compare them. Frisco probably has the strongest broad lifestyle demand, but the licensing path can be harder. Silverthorne may offer more flexibility and more property variety, but it depends heavily on the specific location and the HOA. Dillon can be very attractive for lake view and walkable rentals, but HOA review is absolutely central in where the property is in Dillon. Is it in the town limits or is it outside? And that really matters in the short-term rental discussion. And please, hear me out on this. Rental income should be a part of the conversation, but it should not be the only reason that you buy, because short-term rental rules can change. And here's a perfect example. The town of Blue River, which is just south of Breckenridge and did not have any restrictions for short-term rentals, they just issued a moratorium on short-term rental licenses, like just literally this week. HOA rules can change, expenses can rise, insurance can rise, cleaning and management costs can eat into the numbers, and some properties that rent well are not always the properties that you personally want to use the most. The real question is If the rental income is lower than expected, would I still be happy owning this property? That's the question that protects you. And that's exactly the kind of conversation that I have with buyers before we write an offer. And real quick, I just want to say this because this is honestly why I make these videos. I'm not just making them for fun. I'm making them because buying up here, it's a big decision. And I want you to have enough real specific information that by the time you're ready to talk to a broker, you don't feel like you're starting from zero. And of course, I hope I earn your trust enough that you call me. But that's the truth, because helping you find the right home is only part of the job. The bigger part is helping you find the right town, the right neighborhood, the right rental strategy, if that matters to you, and the right fit for the way that you actually want to use the property. So if you're watching this video and thinking, okay, I need someone who can help me compare all of this, my number's in the description. Give me a call, text me, send me an email. That's exactly what I'm here for. Now, let's talk about something that sounds boring until you're actually up here on a Friday night trying to get groceries, park, or make it to dinner. Access and convenience matter way more than buyers think. When you're sitting at home in Denver, Texas, Florida, Illinois, or wherever you're watching this from, it's easy to think as long as we're just near Breckenridge, we're good. But once you actually own here, those details matter. How easy is it to get to I-70? Can you grab groceries without turning it into a mission? Can you walk to dinner? Can rental guests figure out where they're going? Is it easy to get to the ski resorts you actually use? Can you get around without a car if you need to? And this is where Frisco is strong, really strong. Frisco sits in such a great location. You're close to Breckenridge, you're close to Copper, you can get to Keystone, A Basin, you're near I-70 with 2 freeway exits. That's actually really huge. You have Summit Stage Transit, you have Main Street, you've got a marina, you've got the rec path, and you've got restaurants and coffee shops, even a bookstore. It's just a really efficient place to be. And as someone who lives in Frisco, I'll tell you that central location is not just a talking point. It changes your day. You don't always feel like you're choosing one resort or one activity. You feel like Summit County is just open to you. That's a big reason people love Frisco. Now, Silverthorne is probably the best of the 3 for practical convenience. This is where you have more everyday services that just makes the day-to-day stuff so much easier. You've got the outlets, grocery store, Target, gear shops, restaurants, and the rec center all close by. So if someone forgot gloves or you need groceries or everyone's just too tired to cook after skiing, you're covered. You've got quick I-70 access, and you've got the Blue River running right through town. Honestly, when you spend more time up here, that stuff matters. It's not glamorous, but it's important. Because the mountain dream is great, but somebody still needs to buy paper towels and pick up groceries, replace gloves, get skis tuned, and grab dinner when everyone else is tired. Silverthorne makes those pieces easier, and for buyers who plan to spend weeks or months at a time here, not just 1 or 2 weekends a year, that can become a real advantage. Dillon is more compact, and if you're actually in the town of Dillon, it can be really convenient. You're close to a lot of the same shopping, restaurants, and services that Silverthorne has, so you're not isolated at all. But Dillon also depends a lot on where you are. If you're further out in areas like Summit Cove, it starts to feel more residential, and you're going to be driving more for groceries, restaurants, and everyday errands. So when I talk about Dillon's convenience, I'm really talking about lifestyle convenience. It doesn't have the same Main Street energy as Frisco, but if you're in the right location, you can walk to the marina, the amphitheater, restaurants, and the farmer's market, the rec path, and those lakefront areas that make Dillon feel so special. That's a different kind of convenience. It's not just how fast can I get to Target, it's can I park the car, walk to a concert, grab dinner, see the lake, and actually feel, like I'm on vacation. And that's the right part of Dillon. And in the right part of Dillon, the answer is yes. For some buyers, that's exactly the goal. This is the kind of thing that's hard to understand from Zillow, but it becomes very obvious when you're comparing these towns with someone who lives here and drives these routes all the time. The map can tell you the distance, but it doesn't tell you how a town feels on a Saturday. where you'll actually run errands, or what it's like when everyone's trying to get to dinner after skiing. So here's the simple comparison. Frisco is the best central Summit County lifestyle hub. Silverthorne is the most convenient for real-life errands and variety. Dillon is the best if you want compact lake access and a lock-and-leave feel. And depending on how you plan to use the property, any of those could be the right answer. Now, let's talk about walkability, because this is where people's expectations and reality can be very different. Walkability is one of those things that people say they want, but they don't always understand how much they'll use it until they have it. And in the mountains, walkability is a big deal because weather happens, parking gets tight, holiday weekends get busy, dinner reservations matter. And if you can walk to things, your whole experience just changes. Frisco is the clear winner for classic walkability and town character. Main Street is the heart of it, and it's not just cute, it's useful. You have restaurants, coffee shops, boutiques, gear shops, events, historic buildings, and this warm mountain town feel that people connect with really quickly. When buyers tell me they want a place that feels like a real town, not just a resort or a collection of condos, Frisco is almost always part of that conversation. And you guys, I'm biased because I live here, but I really do think Frisco has one of the best town feels in Summit County. It's small enough to feel personal, but active enough that it doesn't feel sleepy. And that's a hard balance to find. Dillon's walkability is more focused. It's not the same as walking up and down Frisco's Main Street. But if you're near the marina, the amphitheater, Dillon can be incredibly enjoyable, especially in the summer. You can walk to the lake, you can walk to concerts, you can walk to farmers market, to restaurants, get on the rec path, go for a bike ride. And if you have views, the whole experience feels even better. Dillon's character is not really about a historic downtown. It's all about the lake. The lake is the town's anchor. And for the right buyer, that's more important than having a long Main Street. Silverthorne is the least walkable overall, but that's also a little unfair because Silverthorne is more spread out by nature. The downtown core has been evolving, and there are areas where you can walk to restaurants and the river, the pavilion, Bluebird Market, and some of the new gathering spots. But if you're comparing the three towns strictly on walkability, Frisco wins, hands down. Dillon can be very strong if you're in the right lake core area. Silverthorne is more of a drive to what you need town, unless you choose very carefully and you're right there in the center of the town. But that doesn't make Silverthorne worse. It just means you need to know what you're buying. If you want the front door walkability experience, don't assume every Silverthorne property gives you that. But if you're okay driving 5 minutes because you've got a newer townhome with a garage and more space and mountain views, then the trade-off may be worth it. And this is where local guidance really matters, because the wrong town can make the right property feel wrong. And the right town can make a less than perfect property feel like exactly what you are hoping for. There is no perfect town. There's trade-offs. The goal is to know the trade-offs up front, so you're choosing the ones that actually fit your life. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest emotional decision makers up here, water. This is where the emotional side of buying up here really kicks in, because people say they want bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage, and of course they do, but then they stand on a deck and they see the lake, or they hear the river, or they walk out onto the rec path, and suddenly the spreadsheet gets a little quieter. That's real. Water changes the feel of a property. Dillon is the strongest lake town of the three. If your dream is lake views, marina access, summer concerts, paddleboarding, sailing, walking the rec path, and feeling like you have this mountain lake lifestyle right outside your door, Dillon should be on your list. This is where Dillon really competes. A Dillon condo with a great lake view may not have the square footage of something in Silverthorne. It may not have Frisco's Main Street charm, but it may have a view that makes you stop talking the second you walk in. And that matters. I've seen it happen. Because you're not just buying a property, you're buying how it feels to be there. Frisco also has a great lake connection, but it's different. Frisco gives you lake access plus town. You have the Frisco Bay Marina, you have the rec path, you have Main Street, you have restaurants. You have the ability to blend lake recreation with daily town life. That combination is really strong. You can paddleboard in the morning, walk Main Street in the afternoon, go to dinner without feeling like you've had to choose between lake and town. Frisco gives you both. Silverthorne is more river focused. The Blue River is a huge part of that town's identity. It runs right through Silverthorne, and depending on where you are, you can have river access, river views, fishing, walking paths, and that peaceful mountain river feeling. Silverthorne doesn't have the same direct marina lifestyle as Dillon or Frisco, but it gives you something else. It gives you river views, convenience, and more property variety. And for some buyers, that's the better fit. So if water is a major part of the dream, I'd ask it this way. Do you want lake views and marina energy? Look hard at Dillon. Do you want lake access with a true town center? Look hard at Frisco. Do you want river access, convenience, and more variety in properties themselves? Look hard at Silverthorne. That one question can narrow the search down really quickly. And this is also why I always want to know what's behind the search criteria. When a buyer says they want views, that can mean lake views, ski area views, 10-mile range or Gore Range views, river frontage, or just that wide open mountain feeling. Those are all very different searches. Now, let's bring this back to budget and what you can actually buy. This is where the dream starts meeting the budget, because it's one thing to say we want Frisco charm, or we want Dillon Lake views, or we want more space in Silverthorne. But it's another thing to see what each town actually offers at your price point. And I want to be really clear on this, because this is where people sometimes oversimplify the differences between these towns. You can find condos, townhomes, duplex properties, and single-family homes in all three of these areas. So it's not that Frisco only has one type of property or Dillon only has one type of property. You can find a little bit of everything. The difference is really in how much inventory there tends to be, where that inventory is located, and what you're usually paying for it. Frisco generally feels tighter. You can absolutely find condos, townhomes, single-family homes in Frisco, but there's just isn't as much single-family inventory as you'll usually see in Silverthorne. And because Frisco has that classic Main Street charm, central location, lake access, and strong year-round rental appeal, you're usually paying a little more for it. Frisco is not usually where I send buyers who say, we want the most house for the money. Frisco is where I send buyers who say, we really care about location. We want the town feel. We want to be central. We want to walk to Main Street and get to the marina and have easy access to multiple ski areas. That's the Frisco value. You may give up some square footage or garage space or newer finishes depending upon the price point, but what you're getting is the lifestyle and the location. And for the right buyer, that's absolutely worth it. Dillon's a little different because it really depends on which part of Dillon you're talking about. In the town core, especially around the marina, amphitheater, or lakefront areas, you're going to see more condos and townhomes. That's part of what gives Dillon that easy lock and leave appeal. You can be close to the lake, close to concerts, close to the rec path, and have something that feels fairly simple to own if the HOA is well run. But if you move further out into areas like Summit Cove, Summerwood, and the surrounding Dillon areas, you can find more single-family home inventory and a more residential feel. So Dillon is not just one thing. If someone says, I want lake views and walkability, you're probably looking closer to the town core. If someone says, I want more space, maybe silver-family home, I'm okay driving, then we may be looking further out, Summit Cove, Summerwood. That distinction really matters. Silverthorne probably gives you the widest range of options overall, especially if you want more single-family home inventory, newer construction, garage space, and bigger mountain views. And honestly, if a buyer tells me big mountain views are high on the priority list, Silverthorne is usually one of the first places I want to look. Depending on the neighborhood, you can get these gorgeous views towards the Gore Range, all the way out even towards Keystone and Lake Dillon, and that can be a major part of the appeal. Silverthorne also tends to have more variety in price points and property types than Frisco, and in many cases, Silverthorne and Dillon can feel a little more approachable than Frisco from a pricing standpoint. Not inexpensive, because this is still Summit County, but generally Frisco carries more of a premium. So when I'm helping buyers compare these towns, I'm not just asking which town you like best, I'm asking what type of property do you actually want to own? Do you want walkability? Do you want big views? Do you want a garage? Do you want a single family home? Do you want a condo that's easier to lock and leave? Do you want to be in a town core? Or are you okay being a little further out if it gets you more space? Because that's usually where the search starts to narrow. Frisco is usually the premium location and classic town lifestyle play. Dillon can be the lake view, town core condo or townhome play, with more single family options as you move further out. Silverthorne is the variety, functionality, and big mountain view play. And none of those are better or worse. They just fit different buyers. Now, one more thing buyers need to understand before they fall in love with a condo, townhome, or single family home up here. HOA and maintenance reality. Now, quick but important note on HOAs and maintenance, because this is where buyers can get surprised after closing. Town to town, I don't think there's a huge blanket difference between Frisco, Silverthorne, and Dillon. This is very property specific anywhere in Summit County. A condo or townhome can be easier to own if the HOA is well run, the buildings are in good shape, and the dues actually cover the things that you need covered. But I would never assume that just because there's an HOA, ownership is automatically easy. You still want to look at the age of the building, the reserves, the insurance, upcoming projects, rental rules, parking, and what the HOA actually maintains. And honestly, the age of the building matters a lot. Newer buildings are often going to be easier and more predictable, while older buildings can still be great, but you need to pay very close attention to roofs, decks, windows, boilers, siding, and whether the HOA has been keeping up with maintenance. With single-family homes, you're usually taking on more of that responsibility yourself. Snow removal, exterior maintenance, roofs, decks, heat tape, driveway access, landscaping, and making sure someone is watching the property when you're not here. So the real question isn't which town is lower maintenance. The real question is which specific property is going to be the easiest and smartest for the way that you want to own it. And this is where local guidance really matters, because a property can look great online, but the HOA, building condition, and maintenance history can completely change that story. So after all of this, here's how I'd narrow this down if we were walking through your search together. I'd stop asking which town is best, and I'd start asking which town makes the most sense for the way you're actually going to use the property. Because by this point, the differences are pretty clear. Frisco is the one I'd lean toward if you want the classic town feel, the central location. Silverthorne is the one I'd lean toward if you want more options, big mountain views, and more practical day-to-day living. Dillon is the one I'd lean toward if you want lake lifestyle, walkability in the town core, and that easy condo lock and leave feel. So the real decision is not about which town sounds the best, it's about which trade-off you're most comfortable choosing. Are you okay paying more for Frisco's location and charm? Are you okay driving more in Silverthorne if it gets you great views and space and a home that just functions better? Are you okay with more condo and townhome inventory in Dillon's core if it gives you access to the lake and that marina lifestyle? That's the decision. And honestly, that's where the search gets a lot clearer. And if you want help sorting that out, that's exactly what I do with buyers. I help you compare not just the homes, but the towns, the neighborhoods, rental rules, HOAs, maintenance, and the long-term fit so that you can make a confident decision before you buy. My number's in the description. Give me a call, text me, send me an email. Now, if you're watching this because you're comparing towns near Breckenridge, the next video you should watch is my breakdown of what it actually costs to own a second home in Summit County, because choosing the right town is one piece of it. Understanding the real carrying costs is the piece that keeps you from getting surprised after closing. Click that video next and I'll walk you through the costs most buyers don't think about until they're already under contract. I'll see you in the next video.